Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. In the global cannabis landscape, Africa is an overlooked market. This is due to a number of factors such as the illegality of the plant across the continent and the poor economic conditions that many African countries face. Africa has the potential to become an enormous cannabis market due to the large population and favorable climate that makes growing weed easier than in neighboring Europe. A new report suggests that by 2023, the African cannabis market could reach over $7 billion. Africa has a long history of growing and consuming cannabis. In most countries on the continent, the plant is illegal, although it remains widely cultivated and consumed. The UN estimates more than 38,000 tons of cannabis are produced across Africa each year, which results in a black market worth billions. Out of 54 countries on the African continent, only 3, Lesotho, South Africa, and Zimbabwe, permit medical use, while Zambia has legislation allowing medical marijuana that has not been enacted. No African countries have clear legislation allowing recreational use. In South Africa, recreational use is illegal, but cannabis was decriminalized for private cultivation and consumption. In Egypt, recreational use is illegal but tolerated. In Morocco, the prohibition of medical and recreational use is often unenforced, although it's illegal. The first and only country in the region that allows legal cultivation is Lesotho, a landlocked mountainous country that has a favorable climate, abundant water, and fertile soil for cannabis growing. In other countries such as Ghana and Nigeria, cannabis is grown illegally, typically for export. Legalization could result in huge market and great export opportunities for businesses that pay taxes and help enrich the region. In Congo, a 100-kilogram sack of cannabis costs between $96 and $128, significantly higher than maize, which fetches $54 for the same volume. Cannabis could also create legal employment opportunities. According to the Morocco Network for Industrial Medical Use of Cannabis, the clandestine cannabis industry in the country is valued at $10 billion and employs 800,000 people. Overall, the estimates that the African cannabis market would be worth $7 billion by 2023. The bulk of this is allocated to the recreational market. The medical market is much smaller at about 800 million. Even though cannabis is mostly illegal in Africa, in the new nations where it is legal, some international companies have already established a presence. Lesotho in particular has attracted the attention of foreign investors given the possibility to cultivate cannabis for export. Last year, Supreme Cannabis Company invested 10 million in Medigrove Lesotho, acquiring a 10% stake. Another cannabis company, Afria, went even further and formed a joint venture with South Africa-based Verve Group of companies. The biggest deal in Lesotho by a foreign company was made by Canopy Growth in May of last year. The company purchased Daddy Can Lesotho, which has a license to cultivate, manufacture, supply, hold, import, export, and transport cannabis and resin. The total value of the all-stock deal was around $28.8 million at the time. Tilray has not yet invested in cannabis businesses in the region, but it did start exporting medical cannabis products to South Africa last year. Cannabis industry has emerging markets that pop up every day. Africa is interested across all continent, and Europe is taking off. There's 5 key takeaways from a recent European Cannabis Symposium. Europe is fastly becoming a cornerstone in the global medical marijuana industry. Business leaders from dozens of countries descended on Copenhagen to discuss the emerging opportunities in the burgeoning market. Capital markets, partnerships, and more were on the docket Monday at the MJBizDaily's inaugural European Cannabis Symposium in Denmark, one of the countries leading the medical marijuana charge. Denmark's supportive regulations have helped the country attract hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign direct investment from global leaders such as the Canadian giant Canopy Growth and Aurora Cannabis, among others. Some of the key business takeaways from the medical cannabis leaders at the symposium was that Denmark can open doors. Denmark's supportive of medical cannabis patients and businesses across party lines. Another takeaway is not to ignore countries that are developing domestic supplies, such as Germany. Germany's bid to cultivate medical marijuana has been in the works for more than a year, which will produce only 10 to 20% of the domestic German market. That's important because always in these tenders in places like Germany, there's a few strains, whereas in Canada, you need 30 to 40 strains to service all the different patient groups. The third takeaway is to understand the supply chain. The biggest takeaway from product quality and supply chain management is being able to eliminate any issues with regulators by understanding your entire supply chain, including your manufacturer's supply chain. Another important takeaway is to make sure you understand the standards. Good manufacturing practice is simply a system for ensuring consistently produced product. Don't be discouraged by slow regulation and development. Europe's crackdown of CBD food products is happening, and it's going to take years before cannabinoid manufacturers have the certainty about adding them to foods and drinks anywhere in Europe, according to the Director of Government Affairs for the International Cannabis and Cannabinoid Institute. Standardization is still needed in Europe. Making a quality product is a challenge, but it's required in order to have the API that's always the same. Regulatory matters are not harmonized across Europe, so it's difficult for industries to get to a sustainable industry while taking care of patients. They have to get better about taking care of the patients, where there's still a lot of work to do. And with that, we're going to roll this up. This is the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.